Hello, everybody. I'm Cindy Braden, SVP of Sales for EnsoData, and I want to thank you for joining us for our webinar today. Partner with your EnsoData BFF for ongoing sleep lab success. Our hosts for today are Fred Turkington, Andrea Ramberg. Fred is VP of Customer Success at EnsoData, where he leads the technical project planning, implementation, and customer support. After graduating with a BS in biochemistry, he launched his career in healthcare IT, hoping to bring the power and scale of software to the very personal and hands-on healthcare industry. Fred joined the EnsoData team on the promise of new horizons that artificial intelligence and machine learning could bring to healthcare, and is passionate about supporting sleep professionals in reaching and treating patients suffering from sleep disorders. Andrea Ramberg is Clinical Director at EnsoData, where she supports customer expansion and growth opportunities. Utilizing her clinical experience of 14 years as an RPSGT and CCSH, she helps customers create their ideal sleep lab environment and consults on various programs that expand sleep technologists' reach. Andrea is the current president of the BRPT and joined EnsoData in 2020 to help bring sleep medicine and the roles of technologists into the future. She will be graduating with her master's in industrial and organizational psychology in the fall to better facilitate organizational change needed to adapt to the fast-changing sleep medicine world. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Fred to dive into today's presentation.
Thank you. So today we're going to be talking about what EnsoData's customer success team can do for you and your lab. Now, the customer success team is responsible for a couple of different things here at EnsoData. First off, we do the implementation and onboarding. When you first join EnsoData, helping you get through that initial period of getting used to scoring with artificial intelligence, making sure it all works in your lab, making sure that all of the people in your lab are happy using AI for their scoring. We also provide customer support whenever there's an issue or a setting you need changed or want some help with something. That's also the responsibility of our customer success team. Those two things give us a really strong footing to prepare us for the topic of today's webinar, which is ongoing customer success. Now, with our ongoing customer success, we do three main activities. First is a quarterly business review. That's a chance for us to kind of take a step back and help you think about your lab operations and how things are going outside of just the AI-powered scoring, as well as the RPSGT Ride-Along, the opposite end of that. Instead of zooming way out, we zoom way in and help you look at scoring study by study. Then lastly, the BFF program, your best friend forever, your point person from EnsoData, who can help connect you with resources from around the EnsoData community. So I'll give it over to Andrea to first talk about quarterly business reviews.
Hi, thanks, Fred. Hi, everyone. So I, as mentioned, I'm the clinical director here with EnsoData, and I am in charge of the quarterly business reviews. So, when we were looking at this, it's really how I wanted to help facilitate is an opportunity to help discuss your current state of business, how things are currently in your lab. What are your volumes? What are your tech ratios? What are your, everything of how you're operating your current state of business. And then we also like to review your ISR numbers to make sure that, that we're providing the right product and the right service for what you're signed up for, right? And then a return on investment, was it achieved? You purchased, you signed that contract with us for a reason. Are we delivering what we said that we were going to deliver, and are we still getting there with you? Future goals for your business. This is one of my all-time favorite things to talk about with everyone. I, as the president of the BRPT, as a speaker all over, I get to work with a lot of really cool programs and a lot of cool people in the sleep field. And I like to bring that knowledge to these, quarterly business reviews. And then also how EnsoData can help you achieve your goals. So what are your long-term goals? So it's a current state of business, but every lab that I talk to has like, I really want to do this, or I have a dream of that. And how can EnsoData help facilitate that? So the goals of a QBR. ensure that ROI was met. Again, we review the reasons that you signed on to EnsoData, whether that's cost savings, increasing volume, getting down your scoring backlog. We make sure that that was actually achieved. And there's tons of numbers, working with all these wonderful human beings that can pull numbers for me left and right. It helps me facilitate that. It helps me give you those numbers to ensure that we're doing what we need to be doing here. It is also to stay connected on lab operations and use the platform of talking to other labs to benefit yours. There's so many different connections that I've been able to make between labs and between individuals, because I see, hey, your operations are kind of like, or similar to somebody else's that I'm working with. And this helps just facilitate to work better together and then help achieve future goals. I often go over step by step with clients of, what are you trying to achieve and how can I get you there? So we map out a plan of exactly how we see to get you there, and then bring awareness to new features and products. We're always coming up with something new and inventing new things, and the sleep field is changing so much. So there's so much that changes and adapts and new technology, and part of my goal too is to help bring that to your lab. So this is a good scenario that I thought it'd be helpful to give an example of what a QBR, a recent QBR that I did. So there's a multi-location sleep center in Ohio specializing for both in-lab and HSATs. They originally signed on for cost savings and reduced backlog. And I was very happy to hear that, because they actually signed on before I came onto the team. And EnsoSleep has saved them a lot of money. And that was great to hear, 2 years down the road, that it was still working how they wanted it to. We discussed streamlining their workflow and new software integration available. As all of you are aware, with the shift of product availability and, and different things, I've been able to help facilitate and pivot for them of what workflow works better now with that, the new items that we've had come up in the last couple of years. And then what software integration then can we help you with that? And then the result, we set goals to grow their volume and find new ways to bring in revenue. Another part of my favorite thing to do as sleep technologists is to work with them on the different roles. So let us take care of scoring that sleep study, a quick review, but then what else can you do with that time? And sleep technologists, one of their favorite things is to get back in front of patient care. And I'm passionate about making sure that they're bringing in that revenue for that lab, and that their lab in healthcare in general is seeing, their value with that. I also help with perioperative screening and EnsoTST. We have that product that I'm sure all of you, we've talked about a lot, but I'd be happy to follow up with anybody that wants to know more. But how can EnsoTST help facilitate, your lab? It's how can we bring that total sleep time to your HST units to help provide a higher clinical, diagnosis and accuracy for your patients. So another really cool thing that we do here, and I am very happy that we have another great RPSGT that we get to work with, Sean, and you would have seen him last week in a webinar that they did that I think Fred will reference as well. But we do an RPSGT Ride-Along. And to the point of the QBR is kind of a big scope, broad scope, this really dives in, to the day-to-day tediousness of it, to make sure that everything is facilitated right. So the EnsoData's clinical informaticist spends about an hour or so with the scoring technologist, and together they will overscore an EnsoSleep scored study. And what that is I think all of us have a different language, all of us have a different way of mannerisms of scoring a study, right? The outcome might be slightly different, but overall we get the same outcomes, but we have a different way of getting to that outcome. And so what this helps that with the RPSGT do is to be able to kind of hear you think out loud as you're scoring of, okay, I would score this or that. One of my favorite things that we did earlier this year with our team week is we actually had Sean and I discuss just our different scoring back and forth, and even just two texts like talking out loud. It's funny how you could differ a little bit. So this it provides that opportunity to share thoughts and opinions about that scoring process. So the goal of it, it's really also to build that relationship with, with that tech. I know that it's kind of weird, right? Having somebody sit and watch you score. And like typically when you're scoring, you're doing it alone and all that. But something really cool is it helps to build and helps to get that trust within that. And it helps us on our side of things really learn what you need as a scoring tech, what you need to do your job better. And it helps us understand your scoring styles. Yes, the ASM guidelines, everybody follows them, but there's a little idiosyncrasies, within that we like to understand to better help you, better help us kind of detect something to make little tweaks for you to make it much better of an experience for you. There's the differences in the scoring and then creating that trust and confidence that this is a product that will use as a tool for you, that it's helpful and all that, and that you're using it to the full benefit of what it's capable of. So there's a great ride-along example that I was given by Sean. A customer in New Jersey mentioned she was spending too much time on arousal. It's like, hey, Sean, I'm really spending too much time on having to mark all these arousals or move them around, or, we work with technologists where maybe they'll move it along a second, or it's when you look at the EEG patterns, not everybody always agrees with what they're looking at. And so some of this is for us to understand, first off, your viewpoint of what are you seeing when you see this, and how can then we better help you with that. So we don't want it to take you more time, right? We want to make this a product that works for you. So Sean scheduled a scoring ride-along to see just kind of the mechanisms around the scoring. We first want to always listen to you first and then come along with what we recommend. This tech was spending a lot of time on these studies, and that's not the point of it. We want to get you back in front of that patient. We want to get you back doing the massive other things that I know you all do every day. And so they spent time reviewing and seeing how they both saw arousals. And sometimes it's, and I've learned so much over my time, over the years, is maybe something that I didn't see at first or something that I never thought of. I had another tech work with me and be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Or I never thought of it that way. And that's where I see this happening. It really helps us get into a different thought pattern and to make sure that that we're seeing the overall picture within this. So it was pretty cool. The customer was they felt like after hearing Sean's insights and working together with him, they ultimately saved her. They went from 60-minute scoring to down to 30. And that was just because of that time and that trust factor and that relationship building. And, so doing all these things on the customer success side of things is really just to make sure that you feel supported in every component. Now I'll turn it back over to Fred.
Thanks. So those are two specific instances of things that we do for ongoing customer success. These points in time, the quarterly business review and the RPSGT Ride-Along. But those only happen, every so often. They're quite infrequent. So our plan for continuous success is called the BFF program. And that stands for Best Friend Forever. This is your point person from EnsoData. They're the person that you'll build a close relationship with. They'll know your lab. They'll be the one with their ear to the ground as they talk to other customers and other folks inside of EnsoData saying, hey, I think so-and-so would want that feature, or, oh, your customer sounds a lot like my customer. We should connect them to each other. So it's really good for your BFF to be able to get to know you. Now, to do that, what we recommend is a monthly 15-minute check-in web meeting, something just like this, with your BFF, where you can get to know each other and you can bring up the problems that you might be having at your lab that could use a little bit of technology to solve, or maybe just a connection to another lab that's experiencing a similar problem. However, if you can't make it every month, or if that scheduled meeting cadence isn't your vibe, then that every quarterly, the quarterly business review with Andrea there, informed by your BFF and the two of them together, we definitely want to make sure that you do that so that we get to talk to you at least a couple times a year if everything is going fine. Now you might be asking yourself, who is my BFF? Your BFF is somebody on the EnsoData customer success team. We assign out BFFs based on what we learn about you during your implementation, kind of what flavor or character of scoring and lab you might be. You know, we have some labs that are all about clinical quality, right? And we might pair you with a clinician. We have some other labs that are all about efficiency and making sure that they can achieve their growth targets. We might pair you with somebody who's very high-minded about that little extra bit of technology to help you get that extra minute and 15 seconds out of your workflow so that you can get through things faster. You should know who your BFF is if you're a current EnsoData customer. And if you don't, reach out to support@ensodata.com or myself, and we'll make sure that you know who your BFF is and put you in touch. So what are some of the things that the BFF can do for your team? Well, first off, they'll coordinate support responses. You can always email support@ensodata.com, and that goes to a team of engineers that'll help you get the fastest response, right? But in particular cases where there might be an ongoing string of requests or some nuance, your BFF will be the one coordinating inside EnsoData, talking to the engineers, making sure that things move along and that we get those enhancements or problems resolved for you. Any help that you might need with invoices or accounting. And then, as I've been mentioning a few times, these connections around the industry with vendors, with other labs, with just people who have had similar problems to you. Now, lastly, this is something that I personally, as the data nerd of the customer success team, get really excited about, is helping you derive custom insights specific to your lab. For example, we do a report for one of our customers that shows the patients that have the highest proportion of central sleep apnea of their total AHI, because they have a specific focus on making sure that those patients get the right treatment and aren't just sent home on autopap when they may not succeed. Helping with your accreditation performance improvement metrics with the power of data, things like that. So if you have a clever idea for a way you want to use the data that you have from your sleep studies to help further some goal of your lab, talk to your BFF. We can help you out. A couple more examples of real life things that the BFF program has helped achieve. We have two customers on the East Coast. One of them repairs broken ApneaLink devices. The other had a bunch of broken ApneaLink devices. So their BFF connected those two customers, and now they're shipping a bunch of those broken devices to get them fixed and back in service. That'll help them keep up their HSAT volumes that they want to achieve. And the other group, they get a nice little bit of extra income from their repair business. And a very common theme that we hear about right now, staffing back up after dropping off a lot in the early stages of the pandemic. Asking, hey, how are other customers keeping their bed utilization high, making sure that no-shows don't impact their lab? How are they recovering as volumes kind of increase once again? So that's a summary of our ongoing customer success. Now we have these kind of three programs to help you out: the quarterly business review, the RPSGT Ride-Along, and this ongoing BFF program. And with that, Cindy's going to lead some question and answers.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you, Andrea. And I forgot to mention in the beginning, we had some people that have obviously been on webinars with us before that typed questions in. But if anybody else, even though all the lines were muted, we do want this to be very interactive. So please type any questions in that you might have. I will go over the two that came in so far. Very similar in nature, but the very first one, Andrea, is for you. Who should participate and sit in on the QBR meetings?
Yeah, that's a great question. We typically want to see the individual that's really in charge of the strategy of that lab, you know, the one that's overseeing the budgets and overseeing all the future growth of that lab is typically who we see the most benefit of sitting in those QBRs. The one that's in charge of keeping all the staff together and navigating the different roles and different stuff like that. The executive in that field is typically the best one for that.
Perfect. So from the same group, a follow-on question, and Fred, I'll let you answer this one. For the ride-alongs, who in particular should sit in on those? Is it just the RPSGT, or do you recommend lab managers join for the ride-along as well?
You know, it's interesting. For this one, we actually want to make it kind of as small as possible. Ideally, just one tech, meeting with just our one tech. That gives them a little bit of privacy and space to even express some doubts they might be having about their own scoring ability that they wouldn't necessarily be comfortable sharing with their manager. And you know, we can have Sean or another RPSGT from Enso as that confidant, right? And it gives a chance to really hear that specific person's feedback, and that's how we can work with them to help resolve their specific problem. If you've got multiple techs that want RPSGT ride-alongs, that's fine too. We'll do them one at a time.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Hopefully, we'll see some of you at the sleep meeting in Charlotte in June. And then the rest of you will be talking to either Andrea on the QBRs or your BFFs in the near future. So thanks so much. Bye-bye.